Welcome to Uganda, a country rich with an incredibly diverse catalogue of landscapes, wildlife and fauna. You can locate my home by tracing the Nile River all the way down from Egypt to its source, here. The country's diversity is not limited to wildlife. Uganda is home to more than 40 million people, hailing from over 50 different tribes, many with their own language. Uganda also hosts more refugees than any other country outside of the Middle East, serving as a sanctuary for more than 1.4 million refugees in total, the majority fleeing war and violence in neighboring South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet, while Uganda provides a safe haven for many, it still has its own challenges. At the moment, there is violence in the capital, related to an upcoming election that will see the country's president since 1986 take on several opposition candidates, including a popular musician who rose to prominence from the slums of Kampala. Meanwhile, COVID-19 not only poses a risk to the country's health, but it has also struck people's livelihoods, with tourism significantly declining and business activity decreasing. And for the 3/4 of Uganda's population that live in rural areas, the challenges are greater still. More than 8 million people in Uganda lack access to clean water, the vast majority living in rural villages that are off the grid, disconnected from water, sewage and electricity. My name is Moses Rudende, and I am a broadcast journalist living here in Kampala. Today, we will be leaving the comforts of the capital and traveling west to a district called Kiryandongo, an area that borders the famous Murchison Falls National Park, a beloved refuge for elephants, buffalo and other wildlife. As we will see, Kiryandongo has itself grown as a refuge of a different sort. In Kiryandongo, we'll meet up with the Water Trust and explore what challenges Ugandans and refugees face as they look to provide for their families. We'll see the impact of COVID-19 on their lives, and we'll talk to community members themselves to hear how, with a little help, they provide their children the basics of clean water, a healthy home, and an opportunity to invest in a brighter future.
You are most welcome. This is the Water Trust Office, Kiryandongo office. My name is Abu Evelyn. I work as a community development officer, and I've been in the Water Trust for 4 years now.
Typically, you will find Evelyn in a rural community nearby, encouraging households to build latrines and hand-washing facilities as part of a job as a community development officer. Today, though, she will be our guide as we explore life in the district. Our first stop will be Kiryandongo Refugee Settlement, which hosts 60,000 refugees, the majority of which have fled violence in South Sudan. The crisis there has led to more than 2 million South Sudanese refugees in total, including more than 1 million that fled to Uganda. It is the largest refugee crisis in Africa and the third largest crisis in the world. In Kiryandongo, these refugees look to restart their life, with no near-term plan for return to their homeland. Just as many of their new neighbors fled to Kiryandongo decades earlier to escape violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo and northern Uganda. South Sudanese refugees make up about 20% of the population of Kiryandongo district, and there can be tensions from long-standing grievances between refugee tribes to concerns about the fairness of prioritizing support for refugees in a place where Ugandans also lack basic services. These tensions have only increased with the arrival of COVID-19, which has not only heightened health risks and safety precautions, but also affected the economy and social fabric of Kiryandongo. The COVID crisis has not only introduced new challenges to the people of Kiryandongo, but also raised awareness of the existing gaps in water, sanitation, and hygiene access. I spoke with Monica Mugisha, the settlement commandant of Kiryandongo Refugee Settlement, to learn more.
WASH is a key sector, and really we have come to realize it during this COVID time, that there is a need for more funding towards WASH. Water is not enough. Recently, we got funding also from Water and Environment working in partnership with National Water. They've done some water extensions, but not reaching the whole settlement. Some are facing challenges of water. They are walking long distances to fetch water.
This is a problem for refugees and Ugandans alike. To see what impact this challenge has on people's lives, Evelyn and I traveled to Chikunya village, one of the many communities left without water at this critical time. There we met Christine and Ednas Nyangoma at the site of the community's broken down and now abandoned well.
And here we have some ladies who reside within the community. We'd like to hear from them how they are coping up during this time when the water point is not functioning.
Ekizibu kyamaizi kitwina tubaitwina eboa holi ya itel. Twarora kimu kugenda kunanka unibagikanikaga chonka norora kimu nti nobagikanika ekuikara nekora ki nefwa kugenda gichundo oti norora kimu yona nosanga
etaina mane takuleta maizi
nereta maizi gatali garungi bagikanikira etakora kurungi twataka agenda amugera kandi ente zikunywera mu okufuna birwaire tukuturuka abana
bakora myezi 3 abana bakuturuka bakurumwenda
rugendo rwa harayira
umubiri yone kutusiya
nosanga nanka skin zone zisisikaira bwa maizi gabi
abwa maizi.
Spending your day retrieving water is not just a loss of time, but it's physically exhausting. A typical jerrycan of water weighs about 40 US pounds. And one jerrycan is not nearly enough. To meet just the minimum amount of water for drinking and basic hygiene, the typical family needs to make about 5 to 6 trips per day. The broken and abandoned water point we saw earlier is not unusual here. One study found that nearly half of the wells in rural Uganda are broken. The challenge is not just gaining access to clean water, but sustaining that access far away from the public utilities that maintain water for urban areas.
Garune bichafu mugarora gali harayira gali hara muno ugeno nanye mururozera tukurubatamu kubonabona muno nu.
Not too far from Ednas, Rafina Achayo lives in a similar village with similar challenges. Rafina and her neighbors are refugees, largely women and children who fled several years ago from the violence of South Sudan. Violence that has claimed the lives of more than 380,000 people. More than 80% of the refugees that have made it to Kiryandongo are women and children, and it's here where they now work to rebuild their lives.
Mambo sida mwenye tulikuwa ndani hapa ya maji, tulijaribu kabisa, tulijaribu 2014, tunaenda kwa mulima ile, tunabeba maji na kichwa.
Beyond access to water, Rafina went on to describe how her community needed better leadership in a number of areas, not limited to water, if it were to be able to rebuild. With help from humanitarian NGOs, she has been working to become that leader.
Niliona chairman ile hapana saidia. Mimi naanza kusimama kwa leadership. Nilianza leadership yangu kwa Child Protection Committee. Nilikuja nilifanya VSD. Nilikuja watu ya sasa amekuja ametraining mimi. Anda sasa kumaliza conflict.
Listening to Rafina and recalling the unmaintained, broken down well I first visited, I could see the importance of effective local leadership. Universal access to clean water does mean more funding for new wells is needed, yes. But the question that came to mind was how the passion and the leadership of women like Rafina can best be supported to solve community problems which include water, but go beyond that as well. With this in mind, Evelyn and I journeyed next to Nyakatiti village to meet with a community that the Water Trust just began supporting this year. This support entails building a new well, providing training and coaching on hygiene and sanitation, and forming a savings and credit cooperative called a self-help group. There we met with Ozer Wakelot and his wife Elisaba Osida. Ozel and his family escaped from conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo several decades ago. Displaced from their homeland, they have been rebuilding their lives in Kiryandongo for several decades.
An agenu nyinga utie wakel lot Ozele. Enyaka titi bika kenyen. Ana agenu wajolu wafoyo binu mu welu mua mira wara. Ubinu ni larwa kupi anges kusha wanwa bedu e chan pa pi. Pi mua bedu amado o bedu pi maras mi luzi ebe traka e ewa. Agenu an chalma wesi wengweni adaru oru ka keni ni piera ngwen. Oru piera ngwen ni ananga tie kuda uya bora enta don kuda bero ma tie kude ukwo kakae ikabedu mwoma eni do when danu mwoma utie ka keni utie dak ko piera bora we are bis madoke chalo when danu enu utie keni nyo uchopo medo iwapi.
Erisaba continued on the impact of water on her day-to-day life.
Sanu wa benwang papi. Wa beto mu pa yereka kisa. Kendu pa yereka yen wa do bi pali. Piesa onya nyonga ngo iwa. Awiyo berim. Onya tu iya wiyo. Njubangu to. Awoni ni para before Mungu mo kelu kudepi iwa. Re wan watiga kene nyaka titi watie duong danu tie dupa salma zube kwan kundu dak kudangon makudu wabe mitu ni awke konyo wade kapi kende makudu kwesa wade kunu bu kwanyo wako kudango seke dung wabu nenu demu.
Clean water means new opportunity for Ozel, Elisaba and their neighbors, but it's just the beginning. As Evelyn takes me through the community, she points out the hygiene and sanitation facilities that community members have to construct themselves, from elevated drying racks that keep dishes free from contamination, to latrines, to regularly cleaned water fetching and storage containers, to the hand washing station, and finally, the dirt ground swept clean of feces from animals that are part of life in rural Uganda. Maintaining a clean home takes a lot of labor. And a key part of Evelyn's job is not only showing how to build these facilities, but helping them see the impact on health is worth the effort.
First of all, we advise the community about the importance of having a laundry. Because much as you could be having a clean water, but if you bring a clean water to a dirty home, it makes no sense completely. Yeah. So, clean water can easily be contaminated.
It was clear that changing beliefs and behaviors on hygiene was critical, and this is what Evelyn does each day. To understand this better, I asked Evelyn what motivates her to do this type of difficult work.
I've been with the Water Trust for the last 4 years, working in the community, changing behavior. It has been very interesting and very enjoyable working with community members. And I really feel very proud if I see a community transforming from this community which didn't have sanitation facilities, this household which really did not know about sanitation improvement. But now bringing them from down, coming up one step at a time, not hurriedly, one step at a time till when they've attained that sanitation improvement in their community, in their homes as well.
With the arrival of COVID-19, hygiene and sanitation is more important than ever. To learn more about the impact of sanitation and hygiene at this particular moment in time, I stopped by Nyawenge Health Center and spoke with Favor Alonyo, a nurse at the facility.
Common cases here due to poor sanitation is diarrhea in children under 5. It has been very common, but now due to COVID-19, I'm seeing the interventions the people have come out with the IPCs and hand washing there. It has helped a lot since people are washing their hands properly, and people have not been using masks, all of them, but now government has supplied and people are trying to follow the precautions. We are seeing that the number of diarrhea cases at the facility here has reduced compared to those days.
It was encouraging to hear that better hygiene was producing a reduction in chronic disease, and that increased awareness of hygiene might be leading more people to adopt the hygiene practices promoted by Evelyn. At the same time, I knew that the hand washing Favor described was only possible with access to water, and my thoughts returned to the broken down and abandoned well I first visited. While a new well might provide clean water today, would it not also end up broken down and abandoned, and the return of chronic disease? The final stop on our journey would answer this question. We visited the village of Ogengo, where the majority of households resettled after fleeing the Lord's Resistance Army several decades ago. 2 years ago, the Water Trust introduced a self-help group to the community. The group was formed with several goals in mind. First, to save money to pay for the inevitable repairs their well would need. Second, to promote hygiene and sanitation practices. And third, to empower households to save and borrow to deal with emergencies and invest in their future. As Evelyn explained to me, self-help groups like this one typically have 20 to 40 members, and they meet each week to save very small amounts, often just 50 cents to $1. This small weekly savings accumulates quickly, with most groups accumulating more than $1,000 each year. As members save, they can take out loans from the group as well. During the weekly meetings, each member also pays into a reserve fund to pay for their well's maintenance and repairs. The group also collects voluntary contributions for a social fund, which helps families pay for funerals and other emergencies. The three funds allow the community to insure itself against some of its most important risks, while providing capital to invest as well. As I sat down with the self-help group, I wanted to learn what the community valued about the group and why they were still motivated to meet each week 2 years later.
Group eni omiyo goko piu tia ber kai poro kede karo karanga chame group eni no potpe.
Eto na hawan cha group pi pot po balle. Dang wanu beru chilo yer ken wanu cholla me. Eto pi ber group pi mi wan cha ni twara me petia makwa. Pi no pi ker yer ken na chil. Eto gini dushu ti mere be group pi. Kede group da me wanga gwa ko chawa. Pi wajo yawo kede chawa. Group no konyori yo
As I listened to Jacqueline Akello talk with such confidence, I thought back to the disappointment I heard as Ednas described how their water point ended up abandoned rather than repaired, leaving Ednas and her neighbors to fetch water from sources shared with animals. Yet for the men and women of this group, this was not the end of the story. The group is not just a way to keep the water flowing, it's an opportunity for growth. For group members, the majority of whom are women, a self-help group means they don't have to fear a broken well, leading to more long walks to neighboring villages. It also means they have the financial and social support of their community as they pursue their goals.
Group enu konya ka chene pe anaderu chene group a chole kila tena gangkwan menu mo hamukar eti mo ani yeni ni korana ubalo utena tu dugo gang
na ko e bion mele mo ono walti kane ko e group wani daga mar group wana dada group wani be da be petit group mama pore kere fudungo ber group wani na pen anya Luanu se na atima ngo Miriam. A bere group en masala na ti group en konya a bere bolo group chaka ma muma karo. Tese no mo ken ma bere deno. Konya me ya gar artitura at bar at matek ma do konya kora kinyal dum pen ana bere da kota.
For Okengo village, a trustworthy local institution where they could save and borrow very small amounts made a big difference. Maiko Ayala, the treasurer of the savings group, elaborated on the value of this financial access.
Pimwakario mawano beri group eni kibora eto bank moro matie kan mauno chente na matitieno man muaro amugwakie uno pe eto ibedi group umi irakare chente mano nok mano chabera chela chele wala tiki kare me goro ne i group man ma obedi yen bere mad achele no.
There were other stories as well. Before Michael started saving, he said his son was sent home from school before exams because he could not pay the school fees. But now, he's able to take out a loan and his school fees are paid. Maurice Otto previously rented land for farming until he accumulated enough savings to buy a hectare of land of his own. Jacqueline Akello bought 2 goats with her savings last year, which have since multiplied to 6. It was clear that every person had a different path, a different goal that they were trying to reach with the support of their group. As my time in Ogengo village was running low, we asked what they thought would be different in their lives if the group had not been formed. Daniel Arap offered his perspective.
Mano food group eni pere wono timatek bien chamu kana pere modi nyo pere metuo si kamo mere nong chene yo yot wekete kidana makomele ariat no better pe eto kita don group eni tieni.
Nixon Ogwang, a well-spoken local school teacher, voiced a similar sentiment.
Wando miru chak yae kan me wona hebang. Kawo me to chente in case oto me to nichi onung chende wa me to rokonywa. Ame nuni cause me bang nuti attack. Nu red berango, nu abere pepi nu kan me jo to meeting ye wek o poke information. Eka me adek. Kadunga me group yen bedepe.
The words of Daniel and Nixon rang true with me. This group meant many things to this village. Sustainable clean water, yes, but also a growing herd of goats, children's school fees, a permanent home, a plot of land, an opportunity to save, and a sense of solidarity and mutual support at a most difficult time. As I ended my day in Kiryandongo, I recalled all I had seen. The impact of clean water in Ogengo village, the cost of unmaintained wells in Chikunya village, the leadership and will of Rafina Achayo to challenge ineffective leaders and improve her community even after fleeing incredible violence in South Sudan. And finally, how a simple metal box can help leaders like Rafina to bring together their community and turn such small amounts of money into sustainable water and a brighter future. Life in Kiryandongo is not easy, nor were the journeys that brought many here. But if one thing was clear to me after my time here, it is that when you bring together communities with this type of strength and determination, they can accomplish a lot.